Welcome to Demystifying the Metaphysical, here to help you find more compassion in your life. Who would have thought that we could learn so much about a person by looking at their nails and fingerprints? Today, we're going to learn just how to do that. There are 3 different fingerprint types: the loop, which looks like a wave, an arch, which looks like a hill or mountain, and the whorl, which is made up of circles. Sometimes the circles are fully enclosed like the one shown here. Other times they're like spirals. If you have very fine skin, you might need a magnifying glass to see your fingerprints clearly. Each of these prints carry different characteristics, and depending on which finger you find these prints on, the characteristics could have a different interpretation. It's rare for a person to have the same type of fingerprints on all 10 fingers. This exists only on about 10% of the population. If you have more than one type of print, look for the predominant type to determine which type you're ruled by. If your fingerprints don't look like any of these, then you most likely have a variation to one of these types, which we'll look at later. Another way to tell which of these 3 buckets of variations you fall into is to see how many triradii you see. Triradii are little triangles that are formed from the intersections of the lines of the fingerprints. If you see one triradius, then you most likely have fingerprints that fall into the loop family. If you don't see any triradii, then you have arch-type fingerprints. And if you have 2 triradii, you most likely have fingerprints that fall into the whorl family. We'll take a look at the different variations later on in the video. You may find it interesting to see if you have the same type of print on the same finger on both hands. If they are the same type, then the characteristics will be stronger than if the fingers had 2 different types of prints. A quick recap from the 15 palmistry must-know video. If you haven't already, check out the link on the top right. Our non-dominant hand represents our inner world, while our dominant hand represents the personality we show to others. So if your prints are different in each hand, look to see if what you show to the world truly is different from how you feel inside. The loop fingerprint pattern is the most common type of fingerprint. Approximately 90% of hands have predominantly loop prints. People with majority loop prints are adaptable, open-minded, and easygoing. There are 2 types of loops. One that starts from the little finger side and sweeps towards the thumb. This is called the ulnar loop. And the other moves in the opposite direction. It sweeps from the thumb side of the hand towards the little finger. This is called the radial loop. The ulnar loop is much more common, and if you have this type of loop, it doesn't add any modifications to your character, as it's quite neutral. While people with radial loops are a bit more individualistic and assertive. They prefer to have things their way. Here's an example of radial loops. Assuming that the thumb is on the right and little finger on the left, the loops on the middle and index finger start on the thumb side of the hand and sweeps towards the little finger side of the hand. On this hand, the thumb is on the left, and both the index and middle fingers have ulnar loops that start on the little finger side of the hand and sweeps towards the thumb. This is the most common form of loop found on hands. Now let's take a look at the height of the loop. Notice how much higher the loop on the finger on the left is compared to the height of the loop on the finger on the right. When the loop is higher than normal, it means the person is more optimistic and in some cases has higher than average intelligence. The composite or double loop is a variation of the loop formation. It is made up of 2 intertwined loops in an S formation. It is most often found on the thumb and index fingers. People with composite loops are versatile and broad-minded. They can see people and situations from all angles, which make them great mediators and judges. Though sometimes the ability to see all sides gives them too many options, and that can make them indecisive. As we saw earlier, there are two types of whorl prints. One where their circles are enclosed, like what we see on this finger, which is called the concentric whorl, and the other one is like a spiral. When the circles are enclosed like the concentric whorl, the characteristics of the whorl will be stronger than when the print is in a spiral formation. People with whorl fingerprints are individualistic. They prefer to work on their own as they prefer to do things their way and are less likely to compromise with others. They like to think things over, are very focused, responsible, and prefer to lead. The whorl most commonly shows up on the thumb, index, and ring finger. If the majority or all the fingers are whorls, the person could be an expert or specialist in their field. When the whorl is found only on one finger, it will show that the person wants to express their originality in the area of life represented by that finger. See the What Your Fingers Say About You video on the top right to learn what each finger represents. For example, when a whorl is found on the ring finger, the person will have the desire to express their original creative ideas. And when the whorl shows up on the thumb, it could be a sign of a leader with a lot of willpower. The peacock's eye is a variation of the whorl. It isn't a common print to find. If present, it usually appears on the ring finger and is a sign of luck and protection from physical danger. Arches are the least commonly found of all the fingerprint types. If they do appear, they will most likely show up on the thumb or index finger. There are two different arch type prints, the arch and the tented arch. The arch shown on this finger doesn't have a triradius, a little triangle at its base. A tented arch has a triradius in the center of the print, and the lines in the middle of the arch is steep, making the print look like it has a tent pole in the center of the arch. The characteristics of the two different types are very different. Starting with the simple arch first, the arch most commonly appears on earth hands. If you haven't already, check out the video on What Your Hand Shape Says About You video on the top right. The arch denotes someone who is simple, practical, traditional, trustworthy, and reliable. They're usually hardworking and have the ability to persevere. If the majority of the person's prints are arches, they will likely prefer working with their hands, and sometimes they can be a bit stubborn. People with tented arches tend to be idealistic, very creative, impulsive, and a bit anxious. They're very enthusiastic about new ideas, and some might want to impress their views onto others. Fingerprints are usually set in the center of the top joint of the finger, but take a look at the fingerprints on the two fingers where the red arrow is pointing. The center of the fingerprints is off-centered, it's higher up and more towards the right. When the fingerprints are set higher than the midpoint, the person is focused on the mental world. They're more focused on the theoretical aspects of an idea. And when it's lower than the midpoint, the person will focus on the practical aspects of an idea. Now let's take a look at what our nails say about us. The shape of the nail and the amount of space it occupies on the first joint of the fingers tells us about our health and temperament. A well-proportioned nail like what we see here is either squared or rectangular, and neither too broad nor too narrow. The length of the nail should take up about half the length of the first joint. A healthy nail is pink or cream colored, and it doesn't have any ridges in them. We should also be able to see a bit of flesh on either side of the nail. This hand doesn't have them, but having moons would also be ideal. We'll see how moons look like on nails in a bit. The narrow nail is when the nail is more long than it is wide, and there is a decent amount of flesh on either side of the nail. A person with this type of nail will be intuitive, kind, gentle, and dreamy. They might be stubborn and lack physical strength. They probably prefer to live in their imagination. Often psychics have nails that are narrow, showing their ability to tune into their intuition, especially if their mount of Luna is developed. Check out the video on secrets revealed by the mounts on your hands on the top right to see whether or not your mount of Luna is developed. A broad nail is one that covers almost the entire width of the finger. Notice how little flesh there is on either side of the fingertip. It's as if the nail is wrapped around the finger. A person with broad nails is a person with patience, an open mind, honest, and has abundant energy. They're likely to be physically active, and if they do get sick, they will recuperate quickly. Sometimes these people can be too honest and can remember to use a bit of tact. Square nails are as high as they are wide and can be of any size. People with square nails are easygoing, sensible, well-balanced, and even-tempered. The bigger the square compared to the size of the hand, the more well-balanced the person. The square nail on this hand is quite small compared to the size of the hand, making the person a bit more critical. A short nail is one that is wider than it is high. Different degrees of shortness have different meanings. If the nail is slightly short, at about half the length of the first joint, this person is inquisitive and has a curious mind. The shorter the nail, the more likely the person will be opinionated, argumentative, and critical. This person will likely be a very skilled debater. Triangular or fan-shaped nails is wide at the fingertip and narrow at the base of the nail. It could be a sign of a person who worries. When there is a big gap between the end of the nail and the fingertip, this could be a sign that the person has a quick temper. It comes as quick as it goes. Moons, the white semicircle at the base of the nail, is a sign of good health. The moons on this hand is of normal size. If it's too large, the person might have an overactive thyroid. The nail is a record of the past. It takes about 6 months for the nails to grow out. Therefore, the tip of the finger, not taking into account any uncut nails, was 6 months ago. The middle of the nail is approximately 3 months ago, and below that, towards the nail bed, is the present time. White speckles found on the nails could be a sign of worry. Based on the timing we just saw, the period of stress on this finger looks to be about 5 to 6 months ago. If the speckles are found on the index finger, the worry could be related to a person's career, pride, ambition, or faith. If found on the nail of the middle finger, the stress could be related to financial security. If the speckles are found on the nail of the ring finger, this could be related to a person's reputation, or they could have experienced a creative block. When found on the nail of the little finger, the concerns might be related to money, business, or family. When the speckles are found on the nail of the thumb, the worry could be related to a person's will, determination, or leadership abilities. Vertical ridges or fluted nails could be a sign of stress, or the person should watch their intestinal health. The deeper the ridge, the stronger the indication. The ideal colored nail on brown skin people could be a cream or a pink, while on paler skin, it's usually a pink that is 1 to 2 shades lighter than the natural skin tone. When the nail on all the fingers are red, like what we see on the thumb on this hand, notice how many shades darker the nail is compared to the skin. This could be a sign of someone who is impatient and quick-tempered, or someone who has really good blood circulation. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to share, like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.